What's up guys, I'm randomfrankp, and it's already the holiday season, which means end of year wrap-ups. Today we're kicking that off with the top 10 gaming mice from 2024, highlighting some of the best releases that came out this year. We've got a lot to go over, some featured guests as well. It's gonna be a good one. So if you're in the market for a new gaming mouse, this should have you covered. I'm gonna have everything we show off listed for you guys in the description so you can check it out if you're interested. And after we run through all the 10 mice today, we're gonna have a shape comparison at the end so you can see how they all stack up against each other, as well as end-to-end latency results of all 10 mice tested against each other. Let's start this one off. Settle in and get comfy, because here at the number 10 spot is the Logitech G Pro X Superlight 2 DeX. This is a follow-up from one of the top mice on the market with their symmetrical Superlight model, but now comes in an ergonomic release despite not being the G703. Pretty much the same internals as the Superlight 2 from last year, but despite getting some extra curves, it still comes in under 60 grams, and removing the bottom puck's gonna knock out another 1.5 grams, so you can really be rocking at about 58 grams if you prefer. There are Hero 2 sensor returns up to 32,000 DPI, and thanks to a recent G-Hub update, the mouse now goes up to 8K Hertz polling. And that's with no extra dongle purchase required. They are still using their hybrid Light Force optical mechanical switches, and as I mentioned in my review, these feel better than last year's. I don't know if they're like factory broken in or something, but they just feel much less heavier than they did on the Superlight 2, so definitely worth pointing out. The battery's also pretty good. It's rated for about 95 hours, but the area Logitech still needs to work on is with their skates. Even though they're pure PTFE, they still just feel sluggish with no extra glide. This does crack the top 10 because even though it's a new shape, it's not doing anything new or exciting, and this release kinda came out of nowhere, but this does continue the very popular Superlight lineup for those who swear by it and maybe wanna go ergo. Now's your chance. This comes in at $160, so same price, and is also available in white, pink, and black. Number 9 goes to Ninjutso and the Sora V2. If it weren't for some shenanigans, probably would have rated a bit better, but we'll touch on that in a minute. The Sora V2 comes in at a very friendly small symmetrical shape, now slightly smaller than the original Sora for claw grippers, and similar to the likes of the Vaxee E1 and the OP1 here too. Now one of the things we've been seeing more and more, and I like the fact they do this, is stock the mouse comes with no skates underneath. And they do that so you can choose which of the two PTFE pairs you prefer to use, because both are included inside the box, with either a smaller or a larger surface area. And since aftermarket skates are just more and more popular, lets you just pop them on day one as well. The shell is polycarbonate and has a nice natural grip in the hand, also comes in 3 colors from black, white, and pink. And while the shape is just slightly smaller than the original, the newer design is noticeable, and I do prefer this model versus the V1, and it does surprisingly cut about 5 to 6 grams. They say it's 39 grams here, but that's without the skates, which tack on another gram or 2, not a big deal. But still one of the lighter ones on this list today with a solid shell and no holes here. While the black and pink models are all one color, I do like the accented indigo or blurple that we have here on the white with their scroll wheel and some of the branding. I just think it sticks out nicely. They're using Omron opticals with their Pixart 3395 sensor up to 26,000 DPI. In stock out of the box, it goes up to 1K Hertz. Now, like I said in the intro of the segment, they really advertise this as an 8K mouse, even though it's 1K. The 8K comes with a separate dongle purchase in which they went dark online for 4 months and then provided an update that the 8K dongle is finally going to be available, and then it sold out immediately, which was about 10 months after it released. So yeah, not the best marketing there. Was looking kind of shady for a bit. I wasn't able to get my hands on one, so all the testing was done at the stock 1K Hertz polling setting. Despite all that, I do think it's a good mouse at an okay price of $100 too. If this was 8K stock and they didn't ghost the community, I may have bumped this up a bit, but it still cracks the top 10 at number 9 in a year flooded with good releases. Moving on down to number 8 is a brand that popped up out of nowhere back in August and released an absolute banger. That's gonna be the Scyrox V8. And while I'm usually hesitant to put so much faith in a new company and a new product, the Sprime PM1, this was just too good to overlook, and I'm not gonna let one bad apple ruin the bunch. And their unboxing experience is pretty badass. So taking a look at it, I really dig the bright, almost fluorescent yellow color here. It's nice to get these new colorways versus just black and white, which it also does come in, by the way. And as a fan of Pulsar mice who owns pretty much every release they've ever had, this is extremely similar in shape to the X2H lineup. It's pretty much the X2H and X2H Mini combined. It's right in that middle sweet spot here for a medium to smaller mouse. So I think that's why I took so positively to it. I used the X2H for a few months as my main and I loved it. And this is smaller and a lighter version than that, and cheaper as well at only $70. This tips my scale right at 39.5 grams. They have it at 36 grams in the box, but that's because this is another one that comes with no skates out of the box applied. Again, letting you use your own or either of the two sets that come included inside the box. And yes, this is a trend that more and more companies should be doing, letting you choose your own mouse feet. So rocking a Pixart 3950, which was the same sensor used in the Razer Viper V2 Pro before their exclusive license expired, now letting other companies use it. We are getting a trusted sensor here, up to 30K DPI, uses Omron opticals inside, and has 8K polling receiver included stock. So you take a look at the specs, the shape, the overall value, and really for just $70 is an impressive deal. Last I checked, it was sold out everywhere. I do hope they restock, and I hope they don't pull a Sprime and just disappear after one release, because this lineup has some serious potential. I'm a big fan of the V8. The community feedback has been really positive as well, and it's deserving of the best bang for your buck award because it's the least expensive on today's list. Now for number 7, we're gonna toss it to your favorite mouse reviewer. You already know who it is, Boardzy.
Yo, what's good, Random Frank P's channel? It's Boardzy, and my pick for one of the best mice of the year, specifically ergo mice, is going to be the Vaxee E1. The shape is nothing revolutionary. It's based on the Zowie EC2, which is maybe the most popular ergo mouse ever, I guess the Deathadder, but you know what I'm saying. You have to understand about Vaxee is they don't really care about market trends. A lot of mice with a similar shape will use an exotic material like magnesium, weigh in at under 50 grams, but then they have all of these holes, and Vaxee is a company that has just always prioritized solid builds, nice coating, just premium feeling over the absolute lightest weight. And me, as somebody who's tried pretty much every mouse on the market for the last 5 years, I think that classic shapes with just really good quality, nice wireless implementations, that's the way to go for actual like consistency, just long-term use. Another thing that makes Vaxee slightly different is their click implementation, just the switches they use. While most of the market has gone to optical switches, Vaxee is still using Huano mechanical switches, and you can just see how quick the rebound is, how light the clicks are, how spammable they are. And yeah, the E1 is definitely a premium price mouse at 140 USD. You can find great ergos for cheaper, but when you compare it to flagships from Logitech and Razer, Deathadder V3 Pro, and the GPX Dex, this is a slightly smaller shape, so I think it'll be a better fit for most people's hands. $20 cheaper than those, and Vaxee, they just make some great, in my opinion, like evergreen mouse designs. So yeah, there's plenty of great mice that released this year, but Vaxee E1 probably my top ergo pick. Thank you, Random Frank P, for having me on.
So shout out to Boardzy with the Vaxee E1 here. And when it came to first putting this list together, I originally had the Vaxee XES at this spot, but then I tested the E1, and good ergo mice are really hard to come by. I mean, the market's like 90% symmetrical, so when a really good option comes along, I knew I had to include it today. This comes in 6 different colors, weighs in right at 60 grams, and is a cheaper alternative to the Superlight 2 Dex, but it's very similar in shape to the Zowie EC3C, the EC2B, CW, Pulsar X-Lite, Ponage Stormbreaker, and this has 4K polling out of the box. One unique thing about this mouse and Vaxee in general is there's no software. Your DPI, liftoff distance, and pulling rate are all adjustable with the buttons underneath, so a nice way to keep everything on board without needing software on your PC. So at $140 for the Vaxee E1 at the number 7 spot, would have loved if this was closer to around $120, but either way, a good pickup. Now for number 6 is gonna be another guest spot today. We're gonna go to AimAdapt for his favorite pick of the year.
What's up guys, my name is Liam, also known as AimAdapt, and if I had to pick one mouse that I feel like deserves a solid spot on this list, it's going to have to be the Lamzu Maya X. And there is a bunch of reasons for that. First off, this does come with some of my favorite skates out of the box. They offer a very fast, smooth, and consistent glide, and they feel just as premium as some of the top tier aftermarket options that you could pick up out there. And the entire design of this mouse is so well thought out. They have an open base to further reduce the weight, and the custom design here on the PCB, it is designed to fit fit in here perfectly so that the PCB assists with the integrity of the shell. And even though this is as lightweight as it is, it really does make it feel solid in the hands. They've also added a really grippy coating to the shell so it helps you get really locked in as you're using it. It is also using my favorite optical switches, the Omron Opticals. And though they have a unique sound signature, they are the lightest feeling optical switches I've used to date. And Lamzu has done a fantastic job with the implementation. The size and placement of the side buttons really fit the shape of the mouse, and the implementation of them as you're using them really does feel as good as it gets. You get practically no pre or post travel, no matter where you're pressing it from, all the way from back to front. They're very lightweight and snappy, and there's not any noticeable rocking on the side buttons front to back. And then lastly, one of my favorite things about the Maya X is the shape. The size of this is more of a medium to large shape, and it sits right in line with some of the other top esports options. I do feel like this is one of the safest shapes on the market in its class to recommend for various types of different hand sizes and grip styles. Though it does have a mid-hump profile to offer support and stability, I don't feel like it's too high or too low to where it feels too flat or to where it would fill up your hands too much if you do have smaller hands. And I have found this shape to be very comfortable for me, whether I'm using a claw, palm, or even a fingertip grip.
So shout out to Liam from AimAdapt for the Maya X at number 6. And going right along with that, at the 5 spot, it's actually gonna be the Lamzu and Fnatic Maya 8K. And the reason I have these both back to back here is because this is a special edition Fnatic model that comes with an 8K polling receiver stock for the Maya, whereas just the regular edition Maya can only be upgraded to 4K with a separate dongle purchase. So here, you get that higher polling rate natively with the smaller model. That might sound confusing, but just know, this Fnatic model supports 8K included out of the box, whereas the regular Maya caps out at 4K, plus you need to buy another receiver. So this is the best of both worlds combined if you want a smaller symmetrical mouse at 8K, plus you get the Fnatic bright orange colorway that really pops. But in terms of shell and internals, they're the same across all models, with the X being larger, of course. And one of the things I really like that Lamzu does is include a bunch of extras inside the box, like extra skates, skins, stickers, a travel bag. They really make it feel like you're getting your money's worth. And a little bonus that I appreciate is the included USB-C cable for charging has an angled stress relief where the cable begins, so it's angled upward and provides even less drag or resistance on your desk. A nice touch for sure, just all around good stuff from Lamzu with these mice. Now number 4 is gonna be a wired mouse. And yes, plenty of people still use wired mice today, and it's more than deserving of the spot. From Endgame Gear, this is their OP1 8K. This specific model is a limited edition purple frost colorway that I love. The opaque purple shell not only looks killer, but it has this really smooth but also chalky-like grip that does provide a nice feel in the hand. It's not slippery or too smooth where there's like no tactility. It's really unique, and chalky is just the best way I can describe it. If anyone has a better word, let me know. For being wired, I would have loved this was closer to the lighter 40 gram region instead of 53 grams, but I still really enjoyed my time using and testing this. One of the special features to this mouse is the fact that it has hot swap switches. Their KLGXs are stock, but they do also sell separate switch PCBs you could swap in and out to use with other switches, all without soldering or desoldering, which is a really cool bonus for those who love modding their gadgets. But even still, the KLGXs feel really nice and satisfying with a tight paddle tolerance too, no shifting here. And with it being wired, this paracord cable also has that angled stress relief with their FlexCord 5.0. So it's tilted upward out of the mouse, again for less drag and resistance on your desktop while gaming. And the cable itself is really lightweight and never got in the way or interfered with my gameplay. I didn't even use a mouse bungee like most people do with wired mice because I just didn't need to. The cable's really flexible. This also has the 30K Pixart 3950 sensor, and it's capable of 8K Hertz polling. And again, I know a lot of you out there probably went wireless a few years ago and haven't looked back, but there is still a large audience of gamers who strictly use wired mice, and Endgame Gear is just one of those companies who, over the years, continually put out new versions and iterations, despite their fair share of delays. At the end of the day, I really like the OP1 8K, and that's why I have it here so highly rated. Even though it's not wireless, it still feels like it is. They do have an OP1W 4K, which is a wireless version of this mouse at 4K Hertz, a little heavier and not in purple, unfortunately, but since it's so moddable, you can easily just swap shells. Moving on down to the top 3 is the Razer Deathadder V3 Hyperspeed. My pick for top ergo mouse of the year, and it's honestly one that I completely overlooked at launch. Because in the past, the Hyperspeed models were always the battery-powered budget editions. But this is anything but that, and it's pretty much being dubbed the Deathadder Mini for those who love the classic Deathadder shape but want a smaller, lighter version. At right under 54 grams, Razer tweaked the Deathadder shape just slightly enough to cut down about 10 grams from the Deathadder V3 Pro, while still making it 6mm shorter and 3mm smaller in both width and height. So again, it's gonna feel familiar for the Deathadder diehards out there, but at a fraction of the V3 Pro. Where the Hyperspeed budget comes into play is really with just the sensor. It's using the Focus X, which is capped at 26K DPI and 1K Hertz polling out of the box, and for those who do want 8K, you'll have to purchase their separate hyperpolling dongle, but those are the only two sacrifices that I'm sure gamers are more than willing to make. Again, especially if the Deathadder has always been your go-to. It's even using the same exact Gen 3 optical switches from the V3 Pro, and I'm honestly surprised it didn't just toss in the Focus Pro sensor, charge more for it, and call it a Mini, and it would have sold like hotcakes. Either way, what we have here is still more than worthy of being a main gaming mouse, despite the Hyperspeed moniker, no batteries inside, charges over USB-C, and really is my pick for top ergo of the year. It's lighter than the others, it's cheaper as well, and is a really solid under-the-radar mouse from 2024 that impressed me way more than I thought it would. And speaking of being impressed, number 2 is the mouse that surprised me the most this year. It's been my main since I got it in, I haven't put it down. It seems too good to be true almost, but we're gonna toss it to Jakeu for this one.
Hey guys, I'm Jake, aka Jakeu, and here's why I think that the Hitscan Hyperlight is one of the best gaming mice that money can buy. Over on r/mouse review, they asked for what the community wanted to see in a lightweight wireless mouse, and Reddit being Reddit, of course they voted for the Viper Mini because that was an insanely popular shape and mouse in general back then. So keeping that original Viper Mini shape in mind, they have kind of taken that as a template and made it overall much safer for everyone to use. You can see that these sides are noticeably more flat and overall more safe, so they can account for all types of grips, and removing some of that taper on the sides has also helped quite a bit. Whilst the hump placement is very similar, it is indeed a tiny bit more high profile, and as you can see towards the front of the clicks here, you are very close to your mouse pad, which is a huge benefit for these types of gaming mice. With a button height this low, it feels very natural to aim with, and the point and click experience is simply more comfortable than something like the Superlight Dex, for example, where the button height is crazy high. At around 40 grams, depending on what types of skates you use, and with excellent 100% PTFE translucent skates, combined with the immaculate build quality with zero button wobbling, no grinding, no creaking, no nothing, just insanely tight tolerances, this just makes it such a complete package. Similar to the likes of Endgame Gear and Vaxee, the coating on this Hitscan Hyperlight is phenomenal. It is this slightly rubbery coating which is insanely grippy as soon as your hands are a tiny bit warm, and even with cold hands now that we're nearing winter over here in Switzerland, I never had any issues gripping this thing, unlike the original Superlight, which simply felt like a bar of soap in winter. Needless to say, I can highly recommend the Hitscan Hyperlight, especially for those people who are looking for a very complete package and a product that comes from a very passionate project from the enthusiast community for the enthusiast community. Huge thanks to randomfrankp for having me on this content, and I hope to see you guys very soon.
So yes, the Hitscan Hyperlight. And you may have never heard of them before, because this just launched a month ago in October. So not only is it the newest release on this list, but it really is one of the most impressive. Taking direct inspiration from the Razer Viper Mini, a mouse everyone has been asking for an updated wireless version of since 2019, Hitscan stepped in and completely dominated here with a very similar 40-gram release that is just incredible to use. Now, like I mentioned earlier with Scyrox, I really hope they don't one and done us, because now that news is getting out about this mouse and the current mouse community is praising it in every regard, they're gonna get a lot of money. So if they stick around and continue to bring new releases like they did with this, then they're gonna find themselves being a big name in the market. And that's me saying that as someone who has 10 years in the review game. I've seen companies come and go. This is one that needs to stick around. Inside, it's using a Pixar 3395 at 26,000 DPI, capped at 1K Hz, although they do already have an 8K Hz receiver in stock for purchase for an additional $25, and they're using Omron opticals. And as Jakeu said, zero paddle shift. Everything feels so crisp and refined. It's mind-boggling how this is a first release and does feel too good to be true. I could not be more impressed here with the Hitscan Hyperlight. Remember the name, people. So then, what is my #1 top gaming mouse of 2024? Can already hear the haters. The Razer Viper V3 Pro. The release of the V3 Pro is the first time in 5 years where we're seeing a physical design change in the Viper's flagship lineup, excluding the Viper Mini Signature Edition. While it seems Razer is going the direction of more simplistic looking mice with less aggressive edges and points, it's definitely not lost on me this has slightly shrunk down to more emulate the feel of the Superlight 2. So this feels like Razer's going directly at Logitech's throat to gain more of that market share with their already popular Viper reputation. At 54 grams, it did shed about 5 grams from the V2 Pro, while still having a new coating that feels a bit more grippy despite the matte finish here. The V2 Pro coating was textured, but this actually feels better. Now, the majority of the changes are going to come internally, starting with their sensor, the Focus Pro 35K Gen 2 at 35,000 DPI that also has the 8K Hz hyper pulling dongle included for you, no separate purchase required. Now, when I got this was back in April after maining the V2 Pro previously. And the new switches inside really stood out because they feel super crisp with solid tactility that in comparison was lacking on the V2 Pro. However, they're the same switches. What has changed is the inner construction of the nylon materials used inside that make everything feel tighter tolerance-wise and provides a really satisfying tactile click. So with their industry-leading tech inside, the Viper's reputation, and the fact it's the only mouse from 2024 that's already cracked the top 5 use in the esports scene. In fact, it's already sitting at #2 as the most used mouse by pro players, behind the G Pro X Superlight that's been out for 4 years already. The Viper V3 Pro earns its spot as the best gaming mouse of 2024. Not because I like it. In fact, like I said, I'm maining the Hyperlight, but because of Razer's reputation, their tech, and dominance in the gaming scene worldwide. Hate all you want, facts are facts. Now for an extra visual for you guys, I want to do a shape comparison of all 10 mice together so you can see how they stack up. This is courtesy of Elo Shapes. You can go on there if you want to check this out yourself. I'll have a link to this down below as well so you can see how they all stack up. This will give you a good idea of the size comparison for each mouse, kind of how they vary as well. Again, just a little visual bonus of all 10, because it also has a giant spec comparison of all 10 mice as well. So it's definitely a helpful tool. And then lastly, one of the things I want to start to dive into more on the channel, and for this video specifically, is going to be click latency, testing all 10 mice. I picked up an OSLTT, which is an open source latency tool, which is going to let me test real-time end-to-end latency of all the mice today, which is going to show us more real-time, accurate results of what you would expect during your gameplay, which includes switch pre-travel. This does not test response times or USB bus latency, but real-time results from the second you interact with the paddle, begin to physically actuate the switch, to when that click is registered as an input on your PC. Using a banana plug that's connected to it, the second I press down on the paddle, the test begins. The left click paddle has aluminum tape attached with a crocodile clip to ground it. So when the banana plug comes in contact with the aluminum, it creates that signal to start counting. And this is emulating a natural keystroke, which is why I'm also including pre-travel, because this is pretty much closely emulating your finger. This is an electronic finger in execution. Then the OSLTT reports the time in milliseconds from the beginning of the key press to when the switch inside is actuated and registered on your PC. The test was conducted over a series of hundreds of clicks, all averaged out to give you these results. And each mouse was set to 1600 DPI and at both the stock 1K Hz polling rate as well as the highest polling rate that it's capable with, including those that need a separate adapter. Only exception is going to be the Sora V2 because, like I said, their adapter wasn't available for 6 months and then sold out immediately. So here are all the mice compared to each other so you can see which has the lowest mouse click latency. And while admittedly the 8K Hz polling is going to be more important for when it comes to tracking, not so much click latency, you can see though the ones that are capable of 8K out of the box do pretty well on these tests. And again, these are best of the year, so the fact that they're all relatively 2 to 3 millisecond range of each other means these are all lightning fast, they're all under 5 milliseconds click latency, with the outlier being the Superlight 2 decks at 1K above the 4 millisecond range, and the 3 fastest with the Lamzu Maya, Endgame Gear OP1 8K which is wired, and the Lamzu Maya X being the fastest of the bunch. So alright guys, that'll wrap it up for the top 10 gaming mice of 2024. Hope you enjoyed. A lot of great options today, and I hope it helped you out in terms of finding a new mouse if you're in the market for one. Especially with the holidays, be on the lookout for some big price drops as well. Also, big shout out to Boardzy, AimAdapt, and Jakeu for their input on today's list. Again, anything you saw from today's episode will be in the description down below. And be on the lookout for tomorrow, we're gonna have top 5 gaming headsets, and then on Sunday, top 10 gaming keyboards. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up to show your support. Feel free to follow me on all socials at randomfrankp. And lastly, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. Hope y'all enjoyed. Have a good day.